Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was created in the Confessions subreddit by a user named MountainPear9899. The post is titled, "I'm going to leave my girlfriend tomorrow. My girlfriend and I are in our late 20s. We've been together for 2 years. During that time, we both made it clear we want something long-term, a family, and 2 to 3 kids. She was also open with me, or so I thought, that she had a tilted uterus and other hormone issues and may not be able to carry a child to full term, but she wants to try before we explore other options. This is how seriously we took our relationship. We wanted to be upfront and honest. In March, she gave me a pregnancy test and it was positive. I was surprised since she said she was taking birth control and she told me some really explicit and flattering things about how I got her pregnant anyway. She called to set up an appointment to confirm the pregnancy and get an ultrasound. We don't live together, so I didn't witness this, but 2 weeks later, she called me crying, saying she miscarried. This was right before our appointment. I wanted to take her to the hospital to get confirmation, but she was against it. I thought about it, and I think I'm ready to be a father and a husband. I plan to propose to her this Thanksgiving when we go see my family and then break the news to her family over Christmas. We've talked about trying for another baby next year, so we have time to plan for it. She would get emotional and talk about baby fever every time we saw a diaper commercial, and I'd do dumb things like kiss her stomach and say hi to an imaginary baby in there. Over the summer, she talked about babies a lot more. She started asking me questions about whether I would leave her if she can't biologically carry children or if she keeps having miscarriages. I said, of course I wouldn't leave, and if she wanted to try in the future, I was going to be supportive every step of the way. Things got weird last Thursday. My girlfriend's Instagram gets spammed with a bunch of bot accounts saying she's trans, her hair is fake, she's fake, all these things. I called her, she was still sleeping, and when I told her about it, she hung up on me. She made her profile private and removed me from following her. I asked her if she was okay, and she told me her sister was stalking and harassing her and does things like this sometimes. I never met this sister, but I offered to say something to her and tell her to leave my girlfriend alone. She said she's going to talk to her parents and asked that I stay out of it. Her sister messaged me later that day on Instagram. I don't know how she found me, but I'm sure because of how many posts I have of my girlfriend, it was easy. We ended up talking for hours and she said terrible things that my girlfriend did to her when they were children, a lot of assault related things, taking naked photos of her, stuff like that. And that my girlfriend moved across the country so no one they grew up with would know and out her after she transitioned. She gave me my girlfriend's full birth name and a copy of where the name change was published. I looked up the birth name on Instant Check and yeah, that name is there along with the names of her sisters, parents, and other extended family. I couldn't find it on Yellow Pages or White Pages, no record of that name anywhere else, but according to the paper, this name change happened almost a decade ago. The rest of the time, she just ranted about my girlfriend doing things I could never imagine her doing. She is the most caring and giving person I've ever met. She's a mind reader, she knows how I feel and what I need before I know it. One of the reasons I'd have her for the rest of my life and why she'd be a great mom. My girlfriend didn't answer my calls that night and she texted me that she needs some space. I said okay, told her I loved her and just want to talk. I woke up to a really long text from her where she said that she has complete PTSD-induced blackouts from her upbringing and transphobic father, and she has injuries to her head which gave her memory loss. She genuinely cannot remember her childhood and she can't say she didn't or did do those things to her sister, but her sister is also a diagnosed schizophrenic with records of hospitalization and attempts at her own life. I didn't ask, but she shared plenty of stories of her childhood over the time we've been together. I'm not sure if they're real or made up stories now. She explained she just wants a normal life. She said that to explain the situation to her friends, she would say that her sister is crazy and having an episode because quite a few of her friends saw it. I promised not to say anything, which is why I'm here. I can't hold it in anymore and I have no story to tell my family when I break up with her. She admitted the baby and miscarriage never existed, and her therapist advised against her doing what she did to me. She said she was insecure I'd leave her for being unable to carry a baby. I can't say how I would have acted back then, but she also never gave me that choice to decide for myself. I don't know who she is and what is real or not. The tears were so convincing. I held her, brought her painkillers, and warmed up her heating pads for her cramps after her miscarriage. I reassured her over and over whenever we saw baby things. She never said she couldn't couldn't have children. She always said due to hormonal issues and her uterus, she would have a hard time doing it. She isn't even from where she said she grew up. I don't know what about her was real. I decided I gave her 2 years of my life, and I don't know how much of those 2 years was her telling white lies to my face. Now, I'm going to be lying on her behalf, not just to our friends, but to my family, the people I love and have cared for me. I think that's the last I will ever do for her. She lied to me so convincingly, I never had a reason to question her. I've never thought she's cheating, hiding things, nothing. I even used to joke that she was a bad liar because she can't keep a straight face. I guess she can, and I can't get over how easy it was for her to lie to me. Tomorrow's Labor Day and she is finally ready to talk to me in person. I wrote up some stuff I want to say to her and I'll be packing up anything she's left in my apartment. I don't want to drag it out and I don't want to default to comforting her when she cries. I just want to be done with all this. I've asked myself if she told me that she couldn't have kids at all, if this would be different. I probably would have wanted us to try IVF and she would have still had to tell me that she can't. I've never dated someone who transitioned, so I also can't say how I would have reacted. But I don't look at her and see anyone but just her as she is. I can't get over the assault part though. She didn't deny it at all, but she didn't confirm it either. I didn't give the details, but the sister described it in graphic detail. She also said a lot of things that match up with how my girlfriend acts when she gets a little jealous or gets into a fight with other women, and how easy it was for her to lie to me. Please don't be transphobic or use my experience as a basis for transphobia. This is another reason why I wouldn't tell anyone I know in real life, because I don't know if they would do anything with this information. I just really wanted a place to get this off of my chest. Edit, thanks for listening and for the ideas. I'll be meeting her tomorrow and will ask for a public place instead of my apartment. We'll record it. I'm headed to bed and it was nice to get this out of my system. User Ragadas335 said, she lied to you from the beginning. She confessed the truth only after it has been revealed. She tried to convince you to believe in her but not anyone else, and to lie to your family. That's a bunch of red flags to anyone. Fly as far as you can and don't look back. I'm sorry that someone has done this to you. Not everyone is like that. User Princess Sugartits said, dude, are you okay? Do you have someone that you can properly talk through this with? Because the mindfuckery alone over the miscarriage issue is a grief that she put you through and is horrible. I would be saying leave, run until you need to be carried away from her. This is the real reason that you need to leave. It's the emotional manipulation. It's been compounded by many, many lies. But my guy, you need to have someone to talk with about it. Please leave and don't let the emotional manipulation continue. Under this comment, OP said, thanks for asking, I'm not okay. I'll get a therapist once everything is over and I have a chance to process, but there's no way I can tell any of my friends or family. I don't think this is something anyone will keep to themselves. User, I have red hair on my head, said, am I misunderstanding something? Your girlfriend is trans but thinks she has a uterus and can get pregnant, just lying so you would stay with her? What the hell is going on? User, the Beady Bunch, said the following under this comment, no. The girlfriend knows she doesn't have a uterus. She knows she can't get pregnant. This is why she lied about how it would be very hard for her to get pregnant and came up with reasons for why. Tilted uterus, etc. User Karen H said, forget about transphobia here for a second. She lied to you multiple times. She experimented with your feelings with the pregnancy thing. And yes, of course, that's really fucked up that she didn't tell you she was trans. I get not being upfront before things happen physically, but 2 years? That's insane. Dump her and don't look back. Make sure to tell her that this has nothing to do with her being trans and everything to do with her being a liar. User Enigmatic Owl said, I'm so sorry. Please protect yourself from this person by leaving and not allowing them back into your life in the future. It sounds like she has a personality disorder. Lying and manipulation come way too easily to her, and she conveniently discredits the allegations of everyone who knows her well, but also hides behind her alleged PTSD blackouts so that she doesn't ever have to confirm or deny abusing her sister. She sounds like she would be capable of turning on you at any moment. If she can lie convincingly about infertility, a pregnancy, a miscarriage, the harassment of her Instagram account, her relationship with her family, etc., just imagine what kind of lies she'll be able to make up about you whenever you do something that upsets her, or when you put your foot down and show her that you aren't accepting her manipulative behaviors. A habitual liar like her will have no trouble making up lies about you, telling your friends and family, and maybe even the police, that you've been abusive to her or assaulted her. I have seen this happen before to good people. Make peace with the fact that you've lost 2 years to this person and be glad that it isn't more. Don't try to fix this person or this relationship just because you've invested time and emotional intimacy with her. You'll only lose more and more. User NarrowShift4347 said, "Sorry for what I'm gonna say, but you don't want to experience transphobia, and that's what will surround you in the near future. I think you should clear your mind as soon as possible. In fact, if you care at all about your family, you should clear it up for them as soon as possible because your life will be a nightmare for a few weeks." If a person can lie for weeks and even look you in the face without problems while you kiss their belly and talk to them about an imaginary baby, it's because you're talking to someone who is mentally unwell. Now, for the part that you'll probably take as transphobic, if you take into account that they have unresolved issues, did disgusting acts in their childhood, they lie, manipulate, and did many horrible things. Well, keep in mind that most likely when you leave them, they'll call you anything but nice. They'll accuse you of a lot of things and possibly even mess with your work. Please call someone, have witnesses, take care of yourself. Dealing with this type of people, whether trans or not, is very complicated, and it would be almost a miracle if you came out clean. Best of luck, and I repeat my advice. If you want to get out of this situation well, or at least not so badly, don't hide it. Don't hide it from your friends and family. If you are accused of something serious, you will be alone against the world. User Joe's Molick said, "Your girlfriend is a trans woman. She lied to you about that. Trans women can't get pregnant because they don't have a uterus. She lied to you about that. She was very evasive about her childhood and tried to lie to you about that. When confronted, she gaslighted you about that and blamed it on not remembering because of childhood trauma and alleged PTSD blackouts. She moved away from where she was raised, from family, friends, and people that knew her. At best, she's telling you half-truths and at worst, completely lying to you about everything. When she comes by to pick up her stuff, have somebody there with you. I would say 2 or 3 friends at most. Record everything. Do not be alone with this person. There is a good chance they are mentally unstable. I will say it again. When she comes to pick up her belongings, do not be alone with her. Cover your ass. I know you think that you're in love with this person, but you are in love with the idea of what could be and should be. Now is the time to protect yourself. You cannot trust this person. She has shown more red flags than a communist day parade, and you're doing nothing wrong by breaking up with her. This next story was made in the Raised by Narcissists subreddit by a user named Katie Wadey. The post is titled, "She broke into my house, destroyed my belongings, tried to burn my house down, and got caught red-handed on camera by the police. She insists that she only did it because she loves me. I'm 32. I ran away from mom when I was 14. I was sick of being manipulated, abused, beaten, having no privacy, and just generally thought of as less than a person. I wanted out and I took the first opportunity I could get. I got lucky. To this day, I don't know how, but I met some people on the streets who, looking back, were obviously acons too and were trying to escape their parents. We looked out for each other. I'm not saying it was easy or even fun, but it was 10 steps up from living in that narcissistic shithole that mom called home. Mom couldn't find me. I have no doubt she tried for years. I have never uttered my real name since I left the shithole. There were only ever 2 people I told who I really was, and I never told one of them my name, but the other found out. By the time I was 15, I was 4 states away from mom, had a fake name and identity that I was proud of, and a group of people I could trust more than I could mom. CPS didn't even find me until I was almost 16. And that was only because I let my guard down due to pregnancy. When I was 7 months pregnant, 2 months before my 16th birthday, I ended up in the foster system. I'm not proud of what I did, but I am glad I did it. I told CPS that my parents had been homeless too, that I had been born on the streets, and that they were dead. CPS barely even looked into my story. They just stuck me in a foster home. It turned out to be an okay one. They had a couple of other kids and were in it for the money and didn't care what we did so long as it didn't affect them. Still better than living with mom. My older foster sister was there for my daughter's birth. She had been in a similar situation to me and was kind and supportive during the last months of my pregnancy. My daughter and I lived in that foster home for another year until that family's license got revoked. By that time, I was 17, had a job, almost finished high school, and was on track for college. I ended up living in an apartment with my older foster sister for another year and a bit by ourselves with our daughters. I got into college and got good scholarships due to grades plus circumstances. I could pick any college in the country, but decided to stay in the city I was comfortable with and near my foster sister. Everything was great until I was 21. My daughter was 5, starting school, my foster sister's daughter was 8, and my foster sister was 23. I'd known that my foster sister had depression. She'd been dealt a bad hand in life, much worse than mine, but I never knew how severe it was. One night I came home after collecting the girls from school and found my foster sister, my best friend, had killed herself. It was awful. The only good thing was that eventually I was allowed to keep her daughter. I wanted her, I fought for her, all the while dealing with the death of the only person who ever really knew me. But I wasn't going to let that sweet, wonderful little girl be raised in the foster system. My foster sister had obviously been planning her death for a while because she had written out a will and asked me to raise her daughter. Once I graduated college at 24, my daughters and I moved. I had been offered a job across the country, and my daughters and I decided it was time for a change. We wanted to road trip it, thought it would be fun. We planned a 10-day trip with me giving my original home state a wide berth. I didn't want anything to do with it. My daughters were 8 and 11. We chose together where we wanted to stop, what we wanted to see, and what we could miss. Neither of them thought it was particularly weird that I wanted to avoid a certain state. They knew I hadn't had a happy childhood and assumed it was memories from that. They weren't exactly wrong. So you can imagine my surprise when on day 7 of the road trip, at least 1,000 miles away from my original home state, in a fairly crowded city, I ran into Mom and Dad. I recognized her instantly, and I'm fairly sure she did the same to me. I managed to keep a lid on my emotions. I looked past her and pretended I didn't know her. She, however, started chasing me down the street, shouting my real name. I don't know how I did it, but I barely even flinched. All I wanted was to get away from the crazy woman and the memories that she was bringing up. Dad didn't recognize me at all. I'm fairly sure he thought she had finally lost it. By this time, I had grasped my daughter's hands and was trying to get them out of there as fast as possible. She kept chasing me, screaming my real name until my oldest daughter got annoyed and turned around to try to shut her up. If I had realized what she was doing before she did it, I wouldn't have let her. I knew engaging Mom was way worse than ignoring her. My daughter shouted to her, "I don't know who you think she is, but my mom's name is Katie Wadey, not Elizabeth like you keep shouting. Why can't you go terrorize someone else?" I admit I was pissed at my daughter for letting Mom know my new name. It took a lot to calm down after that and have a conversation with her about why you don't give strangers personal information and why engaging with crazy people isn't a good idea. But I managed it. To this day, it is something I am most proud of, that I managed to raise my daughters as real human beings and not things like Mom and Dad tried to do for me. My daughter was sorry, but ultimately it was my fault because I hadn't taught her that yet. We'd lived in a fairly small community before. Everyone knew everyone, and it had never been an issue. I should have known that Mom wasn't going to let this go, but I wasn't thinking that at the time. I just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge, so we did. My daughters didn't even put up a fight, which made me feel 10 times worse because we had plans in that city, stuff I'd wanted to do for ages, and my daughters were looking forward to it. I drove as far as I could for the next approximately 10 hours, just to put some distance between me and Mom. I didn't hear from Mom for about another 6 months. My guess is that that is how long it took her to track me down, with the name she now had for me. In that time, I'd got my life together really well. I'd bought and moved into a nice house with my daughters, was dating a nice guy, had a good job, and a substantial income. I was happy. Then she appeared. One morning there was a knock at the door fairly early. My daughters and I were only just getting up. I thought it might be the guy I was dating. He was always doing things like bringing me coffee early because he knew I didn't have much time in the morning with 2 girls and a fairly demanding job, but he usually didn't come that early. I didn't think much of it though because his job had weird hours. I opened the door to Mom. I was shocked. "What the f*** are you doing here?" I bit out. It was all I could say. It was like 5:30 a.m. and I had just woken up. She just starts bawling her eyes out, kneeling on the doorstep and praying. "Thank you, Lord, for bringing her back to me. Thank you, Lord." Of course, she didn't do this quietly, so it brought the attention of not only my daughters, but my neighbors too, most of whom I was on fairly good terms with. My youngest daughter stayed out of sight the second she realized who it was at the door. After a minute of me looking completely repulsed at this, she held up my phone and mouthed 911 at me. I nodded and she went upstairs to make the call. I was trying to get Mom off the doorstep and off my property and my oldest to get inside and stay there. Neither were listening. My neighbors were coming over to see what the f was going on. 2 of them told me they had called police and one asked if I needed that before they realized someone else had done that. I wasn't keeping quiet about how much I wanted her away from me. When the police showed up, my SO was also with them. He was a cop, and when he realized that this was happening at my house and my daughter had made the call, he asked to come along and see if I was okay. He was great, and when I told the cops I had no idea who this woman was, they carted her off with a citation for trespassing. Not much, but it was something. My SO stayed with me while I got the girls ready for the day. Eventually, I had to go and explain to the neighbors about what was going on. My SO came with me, and he convinced me and a couple of the other neighbors to install security cameras around their homes. After about another year, Mom had terrorized me so much I could get a restraining order. She had to stay away from me for at least a year, not that that stopped her. She'd somehow managed to buy a house in my neighborhood, so that was her address. Throughout all this, I never heard from or saw Dad. Life was a little better by that stage though. My SO and I got married, I had another baby. Another little girl who is adored by all, especially her older sisters. Mom found out about this though, tried to crash my wedding, tried to come to the hospital for the birth, did everything she could to see the new baby. By this time, my family and I mostly took it for granted that we had a stalker. She was just there and we wanted nothing to do with her. I once ran into her by accident at the local supermarket. I would have let it go, but she ran up to me and tried to take my 4-month-old from my arms. She kept saying how I must need so much help without my mommy there to help me and the brats that I put up with to make things worse. I love my daughters, all of them, and I was really pissed off about that. Word of advice, never piss off someone who has recently had a baby and is a cop's wife. Not only did I call the police for her violating the restraining order, but I managed to get her up on attempted kidnapping charges for trying to take my baby daughter. At this stage, the restraining order became permanent. Through all this, my husband one day came home with the file on the person who was originally me. He said it might help me to know who Mom thought I was. Husband said he and his colleagues had looked over my file and decided that running away might be the only reason she was alive. I'd told my husband long ago who I really was. He agreed that what I did wasn't right, but it may have been right for me. My family and I decided at this stage we had to move. My husband had a job offer for another town. My oldest daughter was just about to start high school, so if we were going to move, it was now or wait until middle daughter finished high school. It took 4 years for Mom to find us again. To this day, I don't know how she did it. We told very few people where we were going and even fewer our actual new address. This time though, she didn't knock on the front door or try to engage me in any way. She tried to burn my house down with my husband and youngest daughter in it. I was at work, my 2 older girls at school. My husband had the day off and wanted to spend it with our youngest daughter. He was going to pick the older girls up from school and we were going to meet for dinner later that night. My husband and youngest daughter were upstairs when he heard someone come in the front door. The older girls hadn't been well in the last couple of weeks, so he thought it was one of them, wondering why they hadn't called for a ride home. He waited a few minutes for them to come upstairs like they normally would, or at least call out because they normally did, but they didn't. So husband went to check it out. Mom was in the living room going through everything, tearing stuff up left and right. She started throwing family photos and expensive gaming consoles, TVs, and anything she could get her hands on around. Once she had thoroughly destroyed the living room and kitchen, she went back out the front door and came back with a can of gasoline. By this time, my husband was back upstairs with our daughter and had called police. It was all caught on our home security cameras. Once my husband realized what she was trying to do, burning down my house, he managed to sneak downstairs and get our daughter out without Mom knowing. The police showed up just before Mom was going to light the match. They heard her yell upstairs, not knowing that my husband and daughter weren't up there anymore. This is how God punishes people who keep daughters from their mothers. She knew full well that they were in the house and that she had blocked the only stairway and thus the only way out of the house. I'd been called at work about it and my daughters and I raced home to see Mom being taken away by the cops. She was brought up on attempted murder, attempted arson, and a whole slew of other charges, including stalking and later attempted kidnapping because they found her plan to kill my husband and 2 older daughters, taking me and the youngest and keeping us underneath her house a la Josef Fritzl so that we would always be with her. Later on, OP provided an update post. It's titled, "It's Official, Mom Pleaded Insanity and Got Life in a Psychiatric Facility." Honestly, I'm kinda glad it went that way. She isn't getting out anytime soon. And if she does by some horrible twist of justice, then she will be monitored well for the rest of her life. My family is safe. My daughters are safe. My husband is safe. I am safe. Now it's time to officially move on. A deleted user said, to be absolutely fair, it seems like it's probably the best resolution to this. Your mom will finally get the help she needs and is locked away from society and you forever, where she can't hurt anyone again. User Bass the Gatekeeper said, so just so you know, assuming you're US based, there are no sentences to a mental ward. If she was found not guilty by reason of insanity, she remains in the hospital until the hospital deems that she's no longer a danger. Then she's free to go. Sorry to be a buzzkill, I just don't want you getting a nasty shock in 4 years or whenever.